You've probably been told your whole life that being nice is a virtue, that putting others first makes you a good person, that saying yes when you want to say no is just part of being considerate. But what if I told you that your niceness isn't actually kindness at all? What if the very thing you've been praised for your entire life is slowly destroying your sense of self, your relationships, and your mental health? Today, we're diving deep into the uncomfortable truth about people-pleasing, and I promise you, by the end of this, you'll never look at being too nice the same way again.
Let me paint you a picture. You're exhausted, you've had a long week, and all you want is a quiet evening to yourself. Then your phone buzzes. A friend needs help moving furniture. Your stomach drops. You don't want to go. Every fiber of your being is screaming no. But before you can even process that feeling, you're already typing, "Of course, I'd love to help." Your fingers moved faster than your brain could catch up. Sound familiar?
This isn't kindness. This is a survival mechanism, and it's time we call it what it really is. People-pleasing often masquerades as generosity, as empathy, as simply being a good person. But underneath that polished exterior lies something much more complex and often much more painful. It's a trauma response, a learned behavior that likely kept you safe at some point in your life, but is now keeping you trapped in a cycle of self-abandonment. Think about it. Children aren't born people-pleasers. Toddlers are actually quite good at expressing their needs and boundaries. They'll scream no when they don't want something. They'll refuse food they don't like. They'll throw tantrums when they're overwhelmed. But somewhere along the way, many of us learned that our needs didn't matter as much as keeping the peace, maintaining someone else's comfort, or avoiding conflict at all costs. Maybe you grew up in a household where expressing your true feelings led to punishment, withdrawal of love, or explosive reactions. Maybe you learned that the only way to receive attention or affection was to be helpful, compliant, and easy. Maybe you discovered that anticipating others' needs and meeting them before they were even expressed kept you safe from criticism or rejection. These aren't conscious decisions a child makes. These are adaptations, brilliant survival strategies developed by a young mind trying to navigate an environment where authenticity felt dangerous. The problem is that what protects us in childhood often imprisons us in adulthood. As adults, people-pleasers find themselves in an exhausting paradox. You're surrounded by people, yet you feel completely alone because nobody really knows you. You're always helping others, yet you feel resentful and depleted. You're terrified of conflict, yet you're constantly in internal conflict with yourself. You say yes with your mouth, while everything inside you screams no. The psychological cost of this pattern is staggering. Research shows that chronic people-pleasing is associated with higher rates of anxiety, depression, burnout, and even physical health problems. Your body keeps the score of every boundary you didn't set, every need you ignored, every time you betrayed yourself to keep someone else comfortable. Here's what makes people-pleasing so insidious. It feels virtuous. Our society rewards it, especially in women and marginalized groups who are often socialized to be accommodating and selfless. You get praised for being so helpful, so flexible, so easy to work with. These external validations become addictive, temporarily soothing the deep wound of not feeling inherently worthy. But it's a trap. The more you people-please, the more you reinforce the belief that you're only valuable for what you do for others, not for who you are. The fawn response, as trauma therapists call it, sits alongside fight, flight, and freeze as the body's reactions to perceived threat. When you people-please, you're essentially trying to make yourself so agreeable, so useful, so necessary that others won't hurt, abandon, or reject you. You're trying to control the uncontrollable by making yourself smaller, more palatable, less of a burden.
But here's the cruel irony. The very behavior you employ to avoid rejection often creates the disconnection you fear most. When you hide your true self, your real opinions, your actual needs, you prevent genuine intimacy. People may like the version of you that always agrees, always helps, always accommodates, but they don't know the real you. And some part of you knows this, which only deepens the loneliness.
Breaking free from people-pleasing isn't about becoming selfish or unkind. It's about recognizing that true kindness includes yourself. It's about understanding that boundaries aren't walls that keep people out. They're guidelines that show people how to love you properly. It's about accepting that disappointing someone occasionally is the price of living authentically, and it's a price worth paying. The journey starts with awareness. Begin noticing when you feel that automatic yes rising in your throat before you've even considered what you actually want. Pay attention to the physical sensations in your body when someone makes a request. That tightness in your chest, that pit in your stomach, that sudden fatigue, those are your body's wisdom trying to get your attention. Start small. You don't have to completely overhaul your life overnight. Practice saying, "Let me think about it and get back to you," instead of immediately agreeing. This simple phrase buys you time to check in with yourself, to consider your actual capacity and desire. Notice how uncomfortable this feels. That discomfort isn't a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're doing something different. And different feels dangerous to a nervous system trained in people-pleasing.
Expect guilt. When you start setting boundaries after years of having none, guilt will show up like clockwork. This doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. Guilt, in this context, is often just the feeling of breaking an old pattern. It's your trauma response protesting because boundaries feel unsafe to a part of you that learned survival meant accommodation.
Find support. Whether it's therapy, trusted friends who understand what you're working through, or communities of people on similar journeys, you don't have to do this alone. In fact, trying to heal people-pleasing alone often becomes another form of people-pleasing, the belief that you shouldn't burden others with your struggles. So here's what I want you to take away from this. If you recognize yourself in this pattern, you're not broken, you're not weak. You adapted brilliantly to circumstances that required you to prioritize others' needs over your own. That survival strategy served you once, and there's no shame in that. But if it's no longer serving you, if it's keeping you from the authentic life and genuine connections you crave, then it's time to thank it for its service and begin the brave work of learning a new way. Your worth isn't conditional on your usefulness. Your value doesn't depend on how much you can do for others. You're allowed to take up space, to have needs, to say no without explanation or apology. You're allowed to be a whole person, not just a supporting character in everyone else's story. And the people who truly love you, they'll respect your boundaries. They'll appreciate the real you more than they ever appreciated the performance.
Because real connection only happens when two authentic people show up, not when one person constantly shapeshifts to accommodate the other.
The hidden cost of being too nice is that you lose yourself in the process. But the beautiful thing about awareness is that it's the first step toward reclaiming who you really are underneath all those learned behaviors. You don't have to be nice, you get to be real. And that, my friend, is where true kindness and genuine connection actually begin.